It gives me great pleasure to present Kath Campbell. She is the acting Deputy Administrator of USAID, and she is responsible for the Office of Afghanistan and Pakistan Affairs at the policy level. She has quite a number of years serving in Afghanistan with USAID, with the mission there. Has served in Afghanistan with the IRC, International Rescue Committee, for a number of years. She has been very active. She was very active in post-conflict areas like South Sudan. And it's very important for us because Kath is a researcher. She, by the way, when she was working in Afghanistan, she was working with the Afghanistan Research and Education Unit. Now, those of you who look for good data and good information about what's happening in Afghanistan know about AREU. It's been around for about a decade, and it has developed a research capacity for data on the Afghan economy and other issues of importance to Afghan business people, production in different areas and what have you. So the bottom line now is Kath Campbell, please come to the podium, and we are delighted to host you as our luncheon keynote speaker.
Thank you, Don. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to address the 9th Annual U.S.-Afghanistan Business Matchmaking Conference. I would like to thank the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce and its main organizers, Mr. Solomon Lutfi and the Honorable Don Ritter, for inviting me to speak. USAID has worked with AACC for several years, and it is encouraging to see it continuing to lead efforts to promote investment in Afghanistan. Because although I'm here to talk about USAID's commitment beyond 2014, it's you, the private sector, that is far more important to Afghanistan's future. We're all well aware that next year, 2014, is viewed with some foreboding, a year of much anticipated change. The business community is ambivalent, with some continuing to invest and create jobs, and others responding with record outflows of capital. But let's remember that Afghanistan has thrived with change over the past decade. When I flew into Kabul in 2002, buildings were in ruin throughout the city, wrecked planes littered the airport, there was no power, no phones, few shops, 3 currencies. Driving through the Shamali Plain, red stones edged the road, warning people away from the fields of landmines scattered amongst destroyed vineyards and orchards. What changes we have seen since then. Afghans have started businesses all over the country, rebuilt homes and shops, started factories and wedding halls, imported and exported increasing numbers of agricultural products. Afghanistan has mobile phone coverage, the envy of many nations, a robust average economic growth rate of 9% over the past decade, 20% increases every year in government revenue, per capita income increasing 4-fold, and of course the much heralded improvements in health and education, laying the foundation for a healthy, educated, literate workforce so urgently needed by the private sector. Afghan women and men have seen, embraced, and instigated plenty of positive change over the past decade, and they will weather the next year. And the Afghan government has made commendable efforts too. Afghanistan's overall ranking in the 2014 Doing Business Index improved from 170 to 164. Under the leadership of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Afghanistan is well positioned to accede to the World Trade Organization in the near future. Recently, a delegation led by the Ministers of Finance and Agriculture and the central bank governor visited New Delhi to make a strong case for engaging in trade and investing in Afghanistan. Despite these efforts, much more remains to be done, passing the mining law, protecting investors, streamlining cross-border trade are just a few. USAID is proud to have assisted Afghans in these past accomplishments, and we want to help you, the private sector, the Afghan government, and Afghan women and men in 2014 and beyond. Last year, the US and other international donors committed at the Tokyo conference to a compact with Afghanistan, supporting ongoing reforms with international assistance at or near levels of the past decade. USAID assistance in the current year was $1.6 billion, and we've requested a similar amount for next year. Transition has brought a new set of challenges. Economic growth is expected to slow, domestic revenues have dipped in the face of increasing corruption, and while unemployment in Afghanistan is relatively low at about 8%, we know that underemployment is as high as 48% and likely to increase. While some work is better than no work, this means that many Afghans will continue to face poverty and vulnerability and struggle to get by. With this transition time in mind, USAID realigned our objectives and our assistance in the economic sphere to better address these challenges by focusing directly on 4 objectives: job creation, regional economic integration, improving food security, and increasing public revenue. We are looking for constraints to and opportunities for broad economic participation. To achieve our objectives, we're working with the private sector, with the government, and individual Afghans in sectors of agriculture, services, extractives, and trade. What do we plan to do with the private sector? As in most parts of the world, the private sector is critical for achieving our objectives of job creation. That's why we're working with micro, small, and medium enterprises through a number of our projects, including the Abade and FIDA projects. Abade provides technical assistance to help Afghan firms increase their productivity. And I think there's a presentation this afternoon that will go into a lot more detail on that. FIDA then links Afghan enterprises with financial products and services and also supports the financial institutions that provide these products. To help groom individual Afghans with the skills to fill the jobs that the private sector creates, USAID's Afghan Workforce Development Project is working with vocational training institutions in the private sector. In its first 18 months, this project trained nearly 10,000 people and helped place 5,000 people in jobs. Soon we will begin another program aimed at ensuring that Afghan college graduates likewise have the specific skills that the country needs going forward to grow its economy. To help Afghanistan tap all of its human potential, USAID will soon launch Promote, a 5-year, $216 million program to support young, educated women enter and advance to decision-making positions in Afghanistan. One component in particular, women in the economy, will significantly increase women's contribution to economic growth by helping women secure management-level employment and establishing and expanding viable small, medium, and large businesses. In addition to the projects focused on distinct economic actors, we plan to provide assistance to Afghanistan focused on different sectors as well. Agriculture is one priority since the sector comprises almost 25% of GDP, provides livelihoods for nearly 75% of the population, and constitutes the majority of the Afghan exports. Our agriculture programs are helping create farm and non-farm jobs, increase incomes by improving productivity and added value. We're linking farmers and agribusiness in key value chains, rehabilitating watersheds and irrigation infrastructure, and increasing the capacity of the Ministry of Agriculture, Irrigation, and Livestock to deliver some of these services more effectively. In the dynamic services sector, USAID is supporting the development of mobile money systems that will improve access to financial services and reduce opportunities for corruption. We partnered with Mutahid Microfinance as well as DABS, the Afghan electric utility, to allow Afghans to make payments on their microfinance loans and their electricity bills through their mobile phones. To support increased trade, our recently launched Afghanistan Trade and Revenue Project will help the country achieve accession to the World Trade Organization, build capacity for customs reform and other trade facilitation needs, and strengthen cross-border cooperation, as well as implement the expected value-added tax. Through our Midas project, which I think you may have heard about earlier, we're helping Afghanistan to responsibly develop its extractive sectors. And that's not just about making sure all of Afghanistan benefits. It's also about making sure that mining is thoughtfully linked with local businesses. That will help generate a large number of jobs. And Afghanistan could see as much as 2 to 3% increase of GDP in revenues. As I noted earlier, of course, a good mining law will be an important step. Now, most of these projects that I've mentioned are off-budget projects. You are no doubt aware of our efforts, wherever possible, to work with the government on budget, but only when it's appropriate and possible. This is a challenge because working with the government as it strives to build its capacity and govern with at the same time is a challenging thing to undertake. USAID is extremely careful to ensure that government systems have the safeguards and procedures to handle the funds and to implement the project before a project starts. And once a project starts, whether it's on budget or off budget, we are monitoring and watching the implementation carefully. But as you all know, implementing projects in Afghanistan, just like doing business, is challenging. USAID is working hard to ensure that we have a multi-tiered approach to monitoring progress and implementation, both on and off budget. We are and will use consultations with stakeholders, with civil society, with beneficiaries, with government, direct and indirect observation, and new technologies taking advantage of the mobile coverage to track progress. Where we don't feel confident we have proper oversight or implementation is stalling, we will consider moving the project or canceling that part of the project. But we do intend to continue implementing our programs. As you can see, USAID is extremely committed to supporting Afghanistan's economic development. We have projects and plans for projects through transition and beyond. Despite the lowered projections for Afghanistan's economy, GDP growth in 2011 was over 10%, and in 2012, over 14%. These are positive signs that there is much more potential for things to go right in Afghanistan than many are predicting. But USAID is only one actor, and the extraordinary funding levels of the last decade cannot and will not continue indefinitely. The joint efforts of the private sector, the diaspora, AACC, and Afghan government are critical to maintaining the gains of the last decade and continuing progress in Afghanistan. So let's all work together to make 2014 the end of a successful transition and the beginning of transformation. Tashakkur, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kath, that was a great speech, and we all are interested in how USAID approaches the future in Afghanistan, and hopefully your tenure there will be long because you seem to understand the lay of the land. You've been there, you've done it, and we're very grateful. I should add one last point. AACC, ACCI, Afghan Chamber of Commerce and Industries, ABA, in a sense, owe their genesis to USAID. In early 2004, a document that AACC created served as a proposal to create a new Chamber of Commerce in Afghanistan. Atikullah Nusrat worked for us, he's with ACCI. Mubin Shahab worked for us. He is at the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum. And without AAC support, that was a $6 million project. Most of the money was spent in Afghanistan in developing this new chamber. Without without USAID support on this developing a chamber of commerce independent of the government with the principles of world-class, high-level standards, we may not be sitting here today. So I think an extra round of applause to Kath Campbell and her USAID colleagues is well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Pleasure to be here.